something very, very interesting, and I think it's very, very important, it is across all communities in the Jewish population. So to begin with, we're going to go through, you're going to have to stay with me for a few minutes. We're going to go through the sins of the destruction of the first Bet HaMikdash and the destructions of the second Bet HaMikdash and the differences. And then we're going to go and lead on to the fact that we have separate communities. And it's separate communities that stay separate. And it's very, very not good. There's a big lack of unity. So the first Bet HaMikdash we know was destroyed for three things: idol worship, murder, and sexual immorality. The second, and how long was it destroyed for? 70 years, or 74 years, whatever, 76 years. It was destroyed for a very short period of time. The second Bet HaMikdash was destroyed for one thing: baseless hatred. With hating somebody for no reason, sinat chanam. And how long was it destroyed for? 2,000 plus years. We're still waiting for the Bet HaMikdash.
That's worse than sexual immorality and all that.
Very good. So yeah, that's what they say. They say that's what we see from here. That baseless hatred is worse than all those things combined. Now, there's a whole discussion. How is that possible? I mean, murdering somebody versus just hating somebody in your heart. You can't explain that. So I don't know if we'll have time to answer that question, but it's a whole topic in itself.
By sexual immorality, do you mean like spill of seed and all that?
It's referring to that is included in immorality.
Outside marriage.
That's also that, but it's for focusing on outside marriage. But it's all sexual sins.
What's a bastard in Hebrew? I forgot.
A mamzer.
Mamzer.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a few different pieces from the Gemara. I heard this from Rabbi Daniel Gladstein, and he explained it unbelievable. There's the Satan, right? The Satan. Satan? Am I saying that right? Satan. Whatever. That's where you're from. Santa. So if you when the time that God is going to destroy the Satan when Mashiach comes, but God calls the Satan bad, evil. Now the obvious question is why? Satan is an angel. The evil inclination is an angel, right? He's an actual angel.
Soul of an angel.
He's an angel.
So I thought it was a force.
It's a force, but it's an angel. He's an angel. His job is to make the other person sin. So now, why is God calling him evil if he's doing his job? He's helping other people sin. He's making other people sin. That's question number one. Question number two, it says in the Gemara in Eruvin that it says that when somebody dies, and let's say the person was wicked, and he's standing in the steps of hell, he's still not going to do tshuva. The obvious question is, first of all, he's not going to be able to do tshuva. But that person, even if he would be able, he wouldn't do tshuva. Now the obvious question, how is that possible? If you're sitting in front of hell and you're about to go in, wouldn't you say, all right, I see that I did bad. Please, let's work something out. Can we come to some sort of an agreement? So we're in a world of truth. How is it possible that someone won't do that? That's question number two. Question number three, there's a Gemara in Chulin that says that there's a machloket, there's an argument of how Satan looks like. One rabbi says it looks like an idol worship. The other rabbi says it looks like a big rabbi. So it can be both. It can only be one. Okay, so in last week's parasha, it spoke about that there was different. There was 4 animals that are in a different category. When an animal has to be kosher, it has to have split hooves and chew its cud. There are 3 animals that have that's chew their cud, but they don't have split hooves. Chewing the cud is something internal. You don't see it. Split hooves is something that's outside, right? The pig is the one that has a split hooves, but it doesn't chew its cud. Then there is a camel, a shafan, and arnevet, which you could translate to a rabbit and a hare. I think if that's a correct translation. They chew their cud, but they don't have split hooves. So we had 4 different types of exiles. Each exile, it represents another animal.
So rabbit's not kosher?
Rabbit's not kosher, no. The final exile, which we are right now, is Edom, which is Esav, which is representing the pig, which has the split hooves. Now, to explain that, the first 3 exiles they weren't, to the Jews, they were like, we hate you, we're going to kill you. However, they also honored the rabbis. Nebuchadnezzar honored Daniel, and you had, Achashverosh in the Persian thing honored Mordechai, and then you have, the Greeks honored Shimon. So we had everybody, they honored the rabbis. They hated them, and they said, we want to kill you, but they honored them. They were outside, they were not outside and inside, 2 different types of things. You know how you have, the difference you can see very easily is between Arabs now and Christians. Christians, they'll be like, oh, how are you? Nice to meet you. Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, how is your, holiday? Deep inside down, they're like, oh, I hope this guy dies. And, this Jew, this stupid, deep inside, not all of them, but, some of them. Arabs are completely different. Arabs are not going to go and pretend to be nice and that they like you. They're like, they look you and I kill you. There's no, if I could kill you, I'll stab you here. But I can't because I don't want to get arrested. So they're 2 different. So what's the difference between the internal hate and the outer hate? So says the way that they explain it is, when we are in exile, we could see what we're lacking by the other person, by the people that are subjugating us. So, for example, in the first destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash, we had problems that were outside: sexual immorality, murder, and idol worship. Those are all external problems. So the people that came to attack us were all external. They were like, well, we knew that they. But then we had the second Beit HaMikdash was baseless hatred. Baseless hatred is internal issues, internal problems. So because of that, we got into we were subjugated into a country, or into our, it's not our country. It's every country that we've been for the past, the Jews have been exiled to, Edom, is been internal hate. It wasn't external.
Wait, but I have a question. Wasn't Edom a kingdom?
It still is a kingdom.
No, I mean, how is it a kingdom right now?
It's a descendants of the kingdom. We say Edom now.
Edom is the sense.
Yeah, they say Edom now is like the Western world. It's like America, Europe, parts of Europe at least. That's Edom.
Europe's not Western anymore.
Yeah, not anymore. I mean, it's still run by Western, but I'm saying it's over. Yeah, it's going to become very soon. Islam. So
why is it like that God made Edom always rule over us?
Edom comes from Esav. Esav has a lot of power.
Esav will always come over us.
They won't. Not at the end of the days.
I mean, not after that. I mean, like right now.
At the end of they'll. If
towards
we're.
The time of Mashiach, will we see a difference towards it? Not at the time. I'm saying towards it.
Yeah.
Will we start seeing a slow difference?
Yeah, it will be even harder for us.
It will be hard. Like, you mean there could be like an outbreak of a Holocaust again?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
We'll speak about it when we speak about Mashiach.
And
Yeah.
I have a question. Why is there an actual moral doctoral explanation for Holocaust? Or
There are many people that explain it.
Cleansing or like what is?
No, there are many people that explain it. The one who explains the Holocaust probably that I found the best would be the one that was actually in the Holocaust. Rabbi Chana Wasserman, he explains it. We'll speak. Maybe we have time at the end. We'll speak about that. I'll give you idea because he explains the Holocaust. He went to the Holocaust. He died in the Holocaust. Okay, so
He died in the Holocaust.
if I'm not mistaken, yeah. So what's the difference? All the four animals that we spoke about, 3 of them were internal. You saw they were internally. They had to chew their cud. Those were the 3 of the first, around the time of the first Beit HaMikdash. Now, in our exile that we are now is the pig. The pig, the way that it lays down, it sticks out its hooves and saying, "Look, I'm kosher." Deep down, he's not kosher. Inside, he's not kosher, but he sticks it out. That's our generation. Our generation, you have all the politicians, everybody who's running the world. Outside, they're all ethical, they're all moral, they care about ethical laws and, the right for abortion and the right for, gay rights, and everybody's very, they're thinking, but deep inside, they're very evil, right? Look, we had a president that had to be impeached because outside he was very nice, but inside and behind closed doors, it was, a little bit, it was a little different. So that's where we are right now. The problem is now it's trickling down to us. Outside, we look like all righteous. We're walking out with the kippah, tzitzit out. Inside, we have unfortunate some hatred. And this is where this is what I would like to speak about. The Mesilat Yesharim speaks about it and says that this world is considered like nighttime. When you're walking in a very dark street and you see something move in the shadows, you don't know what it could be. The wind, it could be trees, it could even be a pole. And just it could be a person also. Yeah, but you don't know anything until you get closer. You're in a dark place. You don't know anything. The Yetzer Hara, why the evil inclination is so good. What it does is it tells you, no, there's a guy that needs your help. And you go and you sit with the guy and you're talking with the guy. Meanwhile, all you guys talk about is Lashon Hara, evil speech. But in your mind, I'm doing big chesed. I'm doing a great thing. So you're doing all this thing, thinking that you're doing a right thing, and meanwhile, you're doing something very wrong. This happened to me personally. That there was somebody that was going through a hard time. So I said, okay, why don't you go, and I put 2 people together, maybe you could help each other out. Right? And they went together, and I was actually overheard them, and I went over to them afterwards, because one was down, the other one was trying to help them. The whole time they were speaking about was Lashon Hara. And I'm like, you're not helping anybody. But each one, the guy who's helping, thinking, I'm helping this person. The person's depressed, and now I'm talking to the person. So you're not helping him when you're speaking Lashon Hara. But does he think that he's doing something wrong? Absolutely not. He thinks that he's a righteous person. I'm doing the right thing. There's so many.
We think we're doing something right.
Exactly. This is the part that I'm going at. There are some people, and there's so many people that they go and they think they're doing the right thing, and meanwhile they're doing something so wrong. They're doing something so wrong that they don't even realize it. That's why it says, when we start answering some questions now, we said, how come the righteous person, when he goes in front of to hell, he's not going to, a wicked person, he's going to go in front of hell, he's not going to do tshuva. Why? Because he doesn't think he's a wicked person. His whole life he thinks he was a righteous man. What, he's going to do tshuva? He thinks that's going to be a party popper is going to pull up and be like, God's like, I got you, just joking, just kidding. Come to heaven. He thinks he was a righteous person. He didn't do anything wrong. There's so many people, okay, I'll tell you like this. I'll tell you a personal, story. When when I had a friend that passed away many years ago, and it was back then. I used to watch movies. Now, I don't. But back then, I used to. And my friend also used to. We were a bunch of friends together. So I went over to one of my friends, and I said, like, ever since our friend passed away, I'm not able to watch a movie. It's like how do I do this? The world is so fake. It's so short. Well, I'm gonna waste time watching a movie. And he's like, no, I'm the opposite. He says, I need this. I need to watch a movie. I can't get along unless I watch a movie. So in his mind, watching a movie is a right thing. He's being righteous by watching a movie. And he thinks that he's doing the right thing. And there are many people that say, no, I need to go with my wife to the theater now because that's how we bond. You know how many times I heard this. No, we're having quality time. I'm like, what quality time exactly? So you guys are just sitting in the same vicinity, not even talking to each other, not even looking at each other. You're looking at a screen. So it says, what quality? But people convince themselves that they're doing something right, and meanwhile they're doing something very wrong. And this is why God tells us, Satan says, you're evil. Why are you evil? He says, I told you to make people sin, but I never told you to make people sin and think they're doing something right. This is why it says that Satan sometimes looks like a wicked, like an idol worship, and sometimes looks like a rabbi. Sometimes the Satan looks like a rabbi because it's convincing you that you're doing the right thing, but meanwhile, you're doing a terrible thing. This type of person this type of person is on the worst level. And that's why I always say there are many people that the way that they live life is that they convince themselves that it's right. They convince themselves that what they're doing, it's okay, I'm not keeping Shabbat now, whatever it is. I'm like, you don't want to keep Shabbat, whatever I do, I'll try to get you to keep Shabbat. But there's nothing. One thing I'm going to ask you to do is understand that you're doing it wrong. It says when you understand that you're doing something wrong, then you're in the right position. But if you convince yourself that you're okay, that you're right, that this is okay, I eat kosher in my house. When I go out of restaurants, I just have salad, or fish. Oh, I love that one. I have fish. Fish is okay. Which I don't know where they get that from. These are things that I'm telling you. People tell me, I have salad, I have fish, or I don't know. I think someone once told me he only has chicken. Which you start off with salad, then you taste the fish, and then you taste the chicken. Before you're tasting pork. But no, you're making a bracha beforehand. It's okay. People convince themselves.
But you don't know where it was cooked.
You know nothing. No one. Yeah.
It's an excuse that we all, for the person that never kept the Shabbat or never kept kosher.
Right.
We're in denial.
It's a denial. Yeah.
Yes.
The problem is denial is a very bad thing.
But it's very hard.
It is very hard. I'm not saying it's easy. Everything that I'm saying now is much easier said than done. But the point is, it has to be said. No one says it.
Right.
So the point that has to be said, and there's a difference when it makes an impression on the person. There are so many people that I speak to that they live a fake life, and it's one thing if you live a fake life, but you know it. It's another thing if you convince yourself. I said this a few times. So what's the difference between a lie and an excuse? When you lie, you're trying to tell, you're convincing somebody else of something that's not true. When you're giving an excuse, you're convincing yourself. You're faking yourself out. So that's the worst thing, is that when people rationalize their sins. They rationalize and saying, no, it's okay if I do this. It's okay if I live with a woman beforehand, but if I'm getting married to her, I have to know she is in bed. No, that's not how things work, And then, I have to try. How am I supposed to? Maybe I'm going to get married and I'm not going to, it's going to be a big problem. And I'm like, you have plenty of other problems to worry about now than that right now, right? But people convince themselves the craziest sins that they're doing the right thing. They're doing a mitzvah. They're doing the thing, right? So they a friend's depressed, so let's go to, the place in Manhattan, which, I don't want to even say, because, yeah. So, he's depressed. I'm helping him. He's depressed.
Yeah, he's depressed.
He's depressed. You got to help him. Oh, I'm a big tzaddik. After you come out, you'll put on your kippah. I say, who wants a bracha? I didn't even look. I didn't even touch. That's what I could look, but I'll tell you like this. Somebody once told me, going to such one of these places, he says, what's the difference? He says, if I watch an R-rated movie, I see it. So I'm going to see it. I'm not touching anybody. I'm just, going to see it. And I'm like, and what makes you think the R movie is allowed? In his mind, the R movie is okay because he's sitting in his home and he's allowed to watch it. I'm like,
That's silly.
the guy was dead serious. The guy was. You would think that now you're already pushing buttons. He wears a kippah, yeah.
There's a lot of things.
Fish is one thing, but say things like that.
You would be surprised at things that people tell me, and whatever. It's unfortunate. The idea is that people convince themselves that they're right and they're really very, very wrong.
Rabbi, there's a funny story. I heard there's a guy who always there's a strip club. There's a picture of a strip club. Sorry for saying it. I forgot about that.
That's all right.
There's a guy with a film stand right in front of it.
Yeah.
I ask people if they want to put on the phone. It's a video on YouTube.
Right.
I don't know if it's real or fake, but it's hilarious. For 2 minutes straight, they're like, not Jewish, not Jewish, not Jewish. He asked some guy with the kafia on, do you want to?
So no, it probably is a joke, but
or maybe he's trying to get somebody to put a film.
Then he'll change his mind.
Then he'll just change
Yeah,
his mind, walk
that's
away.
true also.
If one guy, he directs one guy, that's already a big
Yeah.
thing.
the other thing that many people say is, I go to these places to be makar of people. I find the Jew and I bring him closer to God. And I'm like, do me a...
There was a rabbi in Israel like that. He said he used to go around brothels to tell them that they're doing the wrong thing. But he used to be at those brothels for 12, 14 hours a day.
Right. So, people. The idea is people make excuses and they bring themselves into very, very terrible thing. If a person sins, know that you're sinning, because then there's hope for you. If you don't think that you're sinning, you'll never do tshuva. Why would a person think that he's doing something wrong if he thinks in his mind that he's doing something right? Now, I want to speak, and this is going to take me on to the next idea is. Last week's Parsha speaks about Parshat Shmini speaks about kosher animals and non-kosher animals. There's
I can't believe we missed that. That was the best.
yeah.
Best thing.
So there is a certain bird called the chasidah. I think the translation is a stork, and it's called the Rambam speaks about it. Says why are certain birds not kosher and certain birds not? Because if a nature of a bird is bad, you eat that bird, your nature becomes bad because of that.
So you're telling me if I eat non-kosher, my nature will become...
Well, we'll speak about that. We'll speak about that very soon. Yeah, and I'll...
You are what you eat for real?
Yeah. Yeah. So the question is, the chasidah is from the shorish of chesed, the root of chesed. Chesed means doing kindness. So the obvious question is, if this bird is named kindness, why is it not kosher? It does kindness. And the answer is because it does kindness to its own kind. It only does kindness to its own kind. Says the Torah, kindness to your own kind is not kindness, which means it would feed its own kind. If it's got the same feathers as it would feed it. If it's not, then it wouldn't feed it. No, they'll feed their own kind. A raven's not going to feed its own kind. I mean, this bird specifically does chesed, but only to its own kind. It's not kosher. There was once, about 100 years ago, there was people that went over to a rabbi, and they told this rabbi. And he said that, we want to start a chesed organization. And so he says, what's a chesed organization? He says that a bunch of people from the community come together. They're going to make like a pool of money. And if anybody needs, let's say, money to borrow to start a business, or they need to, they'll do everything. A bunch of money and clothing and all these things, so it would help the neighbors. So the rabbi said, that's an excellent idea. So he asked him, says, what about if somebody goes from outside the community and comes to ask you for that? So they said, we're limited resources, and we're going to have to politely, refuse a person. So the rabbi replied, I believe it's Rabbi Yeshua Leib Diskin. The rabbi replied to them and says, it's true that when you do chesed, when you do kindness, it's supposed to first start at home. You first start at home, then you go to the community. But he says, when you're doing your kindness right now, you're doing your kindness so it could come back to you. So you'll need it. So you're not really doing chesed. That's not chesed. This you're helping yourself in the future. He says chesed is giving somebody else without any unconditionally. If you have a very close relationship with two friends, right? Two friends are close to each other. They're not going to be like, okay, I'll do a favor now, and then you take out a little black book and be like, one favor, two friend, and you start counting. That's not a friend. That's somebody who's expecting, that's a partnership. You're expecting something in return. Chesed, doing kindness, is doing kindness without expecting anything back. That's why the Torah, there's somebody, if let's say Mr. A injures Mr. B. So there's two ways to look at it. Mr. A has the right to collect from Mr. B, or Mr. B has an obligation to pay Mr. A. The way that Torah speaks about it, it doesn't speak about it in rights. It speaks about it in obligations. It says we don't look at our life as I have a right to my property, and you have the obligation not to infringe on my right. Rather, it is we look at it as you have an obligation not to go. You have an obligation not to go on my property. Not that the aspect of the way the Torah works is not on the fact of the rights, but rather on the obligation. If you always look about for somebody else, there would be no problems. Problem is, people always look about themselves. This is my right for this, and my right for this. If people just worry about their obligations, it's the same thing in marriage. In marriage, so a guy thinks, okay, I'll work, my wife will take care of the kids, and she'll have a warm dinner. So right now, you're looking at your right and her right. I mean, so you have the right to have this, and she has the right for you to work. That's not a happy marriage. A happy marriage is you just look at what you need to do for the other person, not what you're getting in return. So, and to finalize this idea, there was once a big rabbi, a righteous person. I don't know if it was a big rabbi. It was a very righteous person. Somebody who knocked on his door to collect money. Now, it was unfortunately with this person, had this bag collection. So he smelled really, wore bags and he smelled really, really bad. So the rabbi quickly gave him $1 and sent him away. Then 2 minutes later, the rabbi runs out of his house and starts chasing the beggar, and he gives him another $1. And then, the wife sees, he gave $1 and then he gave another $1. So the wife goes to her husband and says, like, you gave the money already. Why'd you run out and give the money again? So the righteous man answers, says, when he came to my door and asking for money, he says, I just wanted to get him rid of it. It smelled so bad that I wanted to go and give him $1 so he could get out. Then I realized that I'm not doing charity. I'm just getting rid of him. He says, now I have to do charity. So now I ran out after him and I gave him money because I wanted to do charity for what it is. Now, there's a very, very big problem in all communities in the Jewish population, and that is the idea that everybody sticks to their own clique. Everybody's doing, when you're doing kindness to your own kind, that's not kindness. There's a story, and it's not only in America. It's all Jewish population across the world. In Israel, it's a big problem. In Israel, there was a story that I don't know if it was a man who was not part of the community, and he tried to get his kids to school. He had a very hard time getting kids to school, and he also had a very hard time getting shidduchim, getting people to date his daughters and his sons, because he was outside of the community. He was not part of the community. Unfortunately, this guy ended up committing suicide. He ended up killing himself because what he's supposed to say is, Daddy, why nobody wants to date me? He says, good, because your face is a different color than everybody else's, because your last name is not the same as everybody else. What is a father? There's a certain point that a father can't handle it anymore. He couldn't say his kids can't go to yeshiva, the kids can't do that. So this is not, and I'll tell you, this is a story that I cannot believe that it's real, but it's unfortunately, there was a guy who started up a business, and he had 2 investors from a certain community, and he was not part of that community. And he started up the business, and after a few months, the cash started flowing in, and the business took its feet off the ground. And they went over to this guy who started a business, and they completely cut him out of the whole thing. They completely, sketched him, and he got, screwed up everything. So, he went over to them afterwards, and he says, they were Jewish and we're not religious. He went over to them and says, how do you do this to me? I have a wife, I have kids, I have to feed my kids. I'm the only one who's working. How do you just, steal everything from under me? And they answered, and I cannot believe that this is true. I don't know. This is what they answered. They answered him. They says, we don't care about your wife. We don't care about you. Your kids are not part of our community. You're not of our community. We don't. Your wife doesn't matter to us, and your kids don't matter to us. And he says, goodbye. I'm like, is this a Jewish nation? Like, what is going on over here? And you say, okay, this is an extreme case. It is all over the place. So somebody's coming to you for a business loan or something like that, and they come. So they're not in your community. You're not going to give them money. That person, that is not the Jewish nation. That is a chasidah. What is a chasidah? That's a stork who does only kindness to its own kind. There are many times that people have come over to me that they date. The question is that they can't find any dates. So I'm like, okay, so if I set you up with somebody from not your community, somebody very close, let's say it was a Sephardi community. In Sephardi communities, there are very similar communities and surrounding them, but it's not the same. So if I get you a guy or a girl for your son or daughter, but it's outside community, you'll date the person? No, we can't. Oh, this community is too cheap. This community abuses. This community does this. This community does that. So there's a reason why we have so many people that are single. There are so many. We have such a big problem with the marriages right now that the people are not getting married. And what is the whole big deal? This is the part that I don't understand. Oh no, they have different customs. I'm like, what customs? You're not even religious. What customs do you have? And this is the part that I said before. So what? So they're not going to be able. Your wife is not going to be able to make oshia pachi, right? She's going to make pluff instead. Right? She's not going to know how to make chaya gosht, right? So she's going to make samsei instead. What are you complaining about? Like you don't keep Shabbat. What customs can there possibly be? And it bothers me so much that this is not a Jewish nation. We're all brothers. We all care for each other. We all intermarry. Yes, you're a Hasidish, you go marry a Sephardi if it's so be it. I say like this. I say to the people, listen, if they are getting, let's say somebody is a certain community and he gets girls and he's dating girls from that community and he has dates, fine, you want to keep it in the community, and you're more comfortable that way, fine. But if you have nobody to date and you have other options and you say no to that, how do you know that? And I once asked this somebody, I said, what happens if your soulmate, he said he's not only dating in his community. I said, what happens if your soulmate let's say your soulmate is Persian and not the Bukharian or not whatever it is. So he says, I guess I'm not going to marry my soulmate. That's what he told me. He said, I guess I won't marry my soulmate. Can you believe that? Why? Because the parents are going to do that. There's one thing that you don't have to listen to your parents for. Right? You don't have to listen to the girl is a good girl and she's keeping Torah mitzvot. Right? And your parents want a different girl that doesn't keep Torah mitzvot and doesn't do anything. You don't have to listen to your parents. You go and you marry the girl that's good for you. Your parents are not marrying the girl. You're marrying the girl.
As long as she's Jewish.
As long as she's religious. Dude, we have to go a step further now. Yeah. So the idea is that people convince themselves that they're doing the right thing. I'm listening to my parents. This goes back to what we started off with. Oh, I'm doing the right thing. I'm listening to my parents. My parents want to do this. At the end, who's going to pay for it? You're going to pay for it. You're going to end up marrying a girl that's not for you. That your parents are the ones who's going to want to, marry this person, and that's it. And then what are you left with? Left with a very, very terrible marriage. So the other important point is that there are many people. Jews know how to give. They know how to. They always want to do good. There's certain organizations, I'm not going to say the name, that help people not become religious, which means people that grew up religious, they go and they'll help them, come out, don't worry, you could be non-religious, join our group, we'll even pay for part of your tuition for college, and they actually pull people out. And they have a whole, YouTube thing that they interview all these people that went off, and they say, don't worry about it, it's okay to go out of religion, I did it, and look how, and I turned out okay. These are people which I really don't understand. Let's say somebody wants to donate money to this thing. So there's two options. Either there is a God or there's no God, right? There's no in between. If there is a God and you're donating money to get people away, to get his children away from religion, so then you're a fool. So you believe in God, but you're saying, no, let's all not be religious. So then you're an idiot. You want to sin yourself. Why are you bringing everybody else with you? And let's say there's no God, so then why are you throwing away money? Who cares? Let the guy be religious, let the guy not be religious. Either way, it's a lose-lose situation. But yet people do it, right? And they're thinking they're doing the right thing. And think, I'm helping people out, I'm enlightening them. They're going to turn out to light into the world. These people think they're doing the right thing, and in essence, they can be doing a more terrible thing. They're causing other people to sin, which is I can't even. It bothers me so much when people not only do they do this, they think that they're doing the right thing. They think they're righteous. So the one thing that I wanted to speak about, which I wanted to touch on very little bit about kosher food. Kosher food. There is a non-kosher food. People say, what's the difference? Okay, so I'll have so I'll eat non-kosher. I don't eat pork and I don't eat shrimp, but I'll eat non-kosher. What's the big difference? So I want to read for you something that says in Mesilat Yesharim. Mesilat Yesharim is such a holy. If you go to any big yeshiva and you say you want to learn musar, you want to moral ethics, they'll point you to this FL. So this FL says like this. It says what happens is that when someone eats non-kosher food, the food goes into his stomach, and from his stomach it goes into the small intestine. Small intestine, they extract the nutrients, and from it goes into the blood. From the blood it goes into it circulates through his entire body. It gets oxygenated, and meanwhile that piece of pork that he ate becomes him. He becomes literally what he ate. He becomes that type of that person. It says when a person goes and a person eats non-kosher things, he becomes that. There's a reason. We don't know all the reasons of why the Torah says don't eat this and don't eat that, but there are very, very strong reasons that you're not supposed to eat these certain things because they affect you. And it says, and the way he says it there on Chal is amazing. He says if somebody has poison, I have here 2 cups. You're very, very thirsty, and I put it down in front of you, and I say one of them is poison, right? Forget about dying, God forbid, and things like that. It's going to cause you to have crazy diarrhea for a week. But you're so thirsty. Is anybody in the right mind going to drink it? No, nobody's in the right mind going to drink it. He says, if somebody goes, and he says, if somebody would understand that non-kosher food is like poisonous food for the soul. If somebody realizes that, and the way he says it, he says, if anybody who has a brain in his head, that's how I'm literally, accordingly, anybody who has brain in his head, that's how I'm word for word translating. He says he will consider non-kosher, forbidden foods like poisonous food. Forbidden foods, by the way, is not just pork and that. If food doesn't have a good hefsha, it wasn't shechted properly, or it was shechted properly, but it itself was a nevela. It's forbidden. It's also a very big problem. He says if a person is presented with possible poison, would a person eat it? He's not sure if it's good or not good. But a person would never touch that food. So certainly if you're not sure if it's kosher, it's not kosher, it's poison for the soul. A person should not be doing that. And he says, and if he's lenient, he says he would be considered nothing but an absolute fool. Nothing. He says this is poison for the mind and the soul. So that being said, people don't understand. People go and they say, I had once somebody ask me, he says, I have 2 options. He says, I'm going to keep Shabbat or kosher food. So I'm only going to do one. What do you think?
Don't do neither one.
So
it's 2 of them or you don't do anything.
It's no you got it. So I said Shabbat, and I asked the rabbi just to double check, and it's 100. It's Shabbat. But kosher food, people don't understand. People think of kosher food, okay, it's just food. What is it? You become that food. It's a very big. It's crazy. And I want to read for you. There is the Chassam Sofer says, he says there is out of all the mitzvot to eat, we really only have one mitzvah to eat something specific, which means is we don't have nowadays, korbanot. We don't have nowadays all these, things that we have to eat that we used to eat in the temple. Nowadays, there's just one thing that we have a mitzvah to eat. Wow, very good. Excellent. Yeah. So he says there's a whole discussion about it. I'm not going to get into it. Maybe we'll touch upon it a different week. But it says that a very righteous person, God won't allow him to eat forbidden foods. And then we bring forbidden things. And then we bring all different types of proofs. So we see rabbis, let's say, accidentally ate on a fast day. So the answer to that is that even though they ate at a fast day, but they ate kosher food. They didn't eat inherently forbidden foods, right? Now, what's the big problem with inherently forbidden foods? Because the way we just said it, it would completely contaminate your mind. I believe the story is with the Rambam, Maimonides, where he says that there was somebody who once went over to him and asked him a whole, slough of philosophical questions. How do you prove God? And how do you know God is here? And prove to me all these things. And Maimonides was a philosopher. He was able to answer them. But the way that he answered him, he wrote him like a paragraph. It says if someone eats non-kosher food, the non-kosher food goes into his body, and then, like I explained before, and it goes into the blood, and he says, and his brain becomes fogged up. He says, you know why he didn't answer the question at all. He says, you want to know why you have all these questions? It's because you're inserting yourself all these bad foods, and you become what you eat, and your mind becomes all these, clogged up with all these impurities. He says a person cannot be close to God and with all this impurities built up inside him. They say more than that if somebody...
Sorry.
Yeah.
You're saying that if you eat kosher food, you're going to have less questions about this whole thing?
Not that you'll be able to understand spirituality better. You'll be more closer to God. Questions are good. Questions are very good. Judaism doesn't frown about questions. Judaism, they ask your questions. Ask whatever you're not sure about. Anything that you can ask. Idol worship, anything is good to ask. Because if you don't ask, you don't learn. Right? Not like other religions where you're not allowed to ask anything. So it says you are supposed to ask. But the problem is that people, when, they ask not wanting to know the answer. People, let's say, the Torah also, it also says that you're not really allowed to read, atheistic works. You're not supposed to listen to someone who's atheistic, right? Not because we cannot prove them. We could very easily prove them, out. But it says once a person has these false ideas in his head, if he wants to, he'll never see the truth. He says you're introducing bad into your life, and if you introduce bad into yourself, into your soul, into your body, you could still see the truth. You could still do all these mitzvot, but it'll be very cloudy, very very fogged up. The Orach Chaim says like this. Says, how we mentioned before that if, let's say, there's a fruit and you make a bracha and there was a soul in that, you fix that person's soul, right? If you eat forbidden foods, it's very possible that there was in that forbidden food it was a reincarnation of somebody who was evil. And that person could come into you. The Orach Chaim says this is like crazy, like deep. Like he could come into you or she and cause you to want to do more sins. It would avera gorera avera. It brings another sin. So it's not. People think about it. It's just it's just a salad. It's just this. It's a lot more than that. So what's the whole thing with matzah? Matzah. Everything else we have. Let's say Shabbat. Shabbat we have to eat also. But Shabbat, you don't have to eat this chicken. You don't have to eat this challah. You don't have to eat that. You have to eat. You have to eat this. It's good to eat it. There's only one time where you have to eat something specific, and that's matzah. Matzah, and that's why the Kabbalists say that if you're careful to eat matzah on Pesach, it will fuel you for all the mitzvot for the rest of the year. It says because it becomes part of you. It's an essence. The matzah is a mitzvah that goes inside you. There's no ever matzah that you become the mitzvah. You understand what I'm saying? So he says, it's crazy that we have Pesach coming and people are always worried. Oh, no, man, I'm going to get constipated. And
so if you eat matzah, it will clean you're talking about that clean your body from all of for the rest of the year.
It would give you it would help you do all the mitzvot for the rest of the year. It's not going to clean your. It's not saying that you should do eat the matzah and then you're good for the rest of the year and then you can do that. But what I'm saying is it becomes part of you. The mitzvah becomes part of you. You're just like it's a food that's becoming part of you that is on a very high level. Okay. Do we have a few more minutes?
Do you have another class today?
I do have another class. Yeah.
You do?
So yeah, but I had a bunch of stories that I wanted to say, but we'll save that for next week on Pesach. Next week I have to speak on Pesach. So the idea behind it. We'll be done in like 5-10 minutes. So you ever realize it? You ever think about it? What is the whole thing about eating matzah? Eating matzah, it makes no sense. So the reason we say is because we were leaving Egypt, and we didn't have enough time to bake or fully. Because what's the difference in matzah and chametz and bread is time. It's the same thing. It just allows it to rise, right?
It's a different.
You could put yeast in, and you can put other things in it. But the main idea is matzah is like 18 minutes. It can't be more. It's very specific. There's also things with water and things like that. But the big difference is time. We were rushing out, right? We were rushing out. So then we only took, whatever we could, and it was only matzah.
But how was it was told them to make matzah? This is the
It was sort of
make it, or it was
a
just
very good question.
that people just started to make it,
And then they were at that.
Yeah,
So
it happened that matzah.
this is the question that I'll ask, that I wanted to ask is we're talking about Jewish mothers, right? Jewish mothers, if you're going on a trip to Miami where there's about 20 kosher restaurants, she'll pack you stuff and stuff and stuff and stuff just in case. So you walk on the plane with bags of food, right? I always said when I used to go to Israel when I was younger, my mother would make sandwiches and ragalach and all these things, a whole slow thing, and I'm like, there's kosher food on the plane. They're giving you glot kosher food, and we're going to blend in Israel, just in case. You never know. So back in Israel, back in Egypt, you don't think the Jewish mothers were like, God's like, okay, we're going to go to the desert. Don't you think they'll start making sandwiches and making all these things? So what does it mean over here, matzah? All of a sudden they stopped, everybody stopped at the same time, 18 minutes. Everybody was cooking at the same time, and they were like, okay, everybody, let's leave. So what is the idea behind it? The other question I want to add to that, and this I heard from Charlie Harari, who explains it also very nicely. He says that, when was the first Sedel? You would think the first Sedel, the first time that they did the Pesach Sedel, would be the year afterwards, the anniversary. And the answer is no, it wasn't. It was the night before they left Egypt. So the obvious question is, what's going on here? Are they doing rehearsal dinner? What are they doing before they left Egypt? They're saying that they're doing their anniversary of remembering going out of Egypt. So he answered this with a very nice idea. There's something called the Pygmalion effect. The psychology. There were two psychologists, if I'm not mistaken, Rosenthal and Babad, who made a study. What they did was they went over to a whole class of students, and they gave them a whole test to see how smart they are. I forgot what the test is called. And the students did there, and they spent like 2 hours doing the test. They completed the test, and they gave back the results. The two psychologists took the results, went into the other room, chucked it in the garbage. They waited about a few hours, and then they went back into the room, and they picked up like 15 random kids. And they called up these random kids, and they told the teacher, and in front of all the kids, these kids, they have potential. These kids, wow, they're going to go places. And then they went at the end of the year, and they saw that the grades of all these 15, just shot up way up, just went completely up. And the idea behind this is exactly: if you think that you could do something, then you can do it. If you think that you can't do something, you already failed before you started. If somebody goes and it doesn't matter whatever they're going into a business, and they think there's no way I'm going to be able to make money in it, then you should just close up already. A very fat chance that you're going to make some good money there. Somebody's going to exercise, right? And he has to start very light, and he thinks there's no way. If you're thinking I can't push up this weight, you can push this weight. But if you think I can do it, there's a big chance that you might get hurt, but you'll be able to start off something. They did their first Sedel was the night before they left Egypt. Why? Because if you want to be free, you have to start thinking free now. You want to be successful, you have to start thinking successful now. So there was once somebody who he was living living a regular life, and then suddenly he had a heart attack. He had a heart attack. After the heart attack, and he bounced back into his health, his life completely changed. He was different in business, different to his kids, different to his friends. Everything changed. So they went over to him and they told him, listen, we know you had a heart attack, you had a very life changing situation, but like, how do you change so drastically? So he answered them. He says, when I was healthy, he says, I always wanted to be a better husband. I always wanted to tell my wife I love her more. I always wanted to take her out for another, night and dinner. I always wanted to be a better father for my kids. I always wanted to be a better friend to my friends. I always wanted to do business more honestly and better. He says, but every time that I started something, I'll be like, you know what, I'll go out with my wife next week. I got to deal with this business right now. I'll take care of my kids next, I'll be, because I have to speak to my wife about something. Everything he played against each other. Everything was in the future. Everything is, I'll be better. He says, after I got the heart attack, he says, I saw that, who knows that, he says, who knows if there's going to be a tomorrow. He says, I started living life very differently. He started living life in the now. He says, everything is right now. I'm not waiting for anything for the next time. He says, everything is right now. He's like, I want to be a better husband. I'm a better husband now. I'm not waiting until tomorrow. I want to be a better businessman. I'm a better businessman now. I'm not going to wait until next time I could do a sale. I'm closing now. So he says that's the difference between chametz and matzah. The difference is time. Chametz is we have time. You have time. Don't worry about it. Let it rise. Let it do that. Matzah is right now. There is no time. So he says we're working. That right now is the time where there are many people that says, oh, I'll be religious when I have kids. I'll be religious when I get married. I'll be religious then. You're not going to be religious that way. You want to be. Everything starts right now. You want to be successful. You don't push anything off. Everything is right now because you don't know if there's going to be a tomorrow. That's the lesson that we learn from matzah. Not the lesson for that we have for chametz, where everything is you have time for it. That's why chametz and matzah is written very, very similarly. The only thing is missing is the difference is a little spot between the hey and the chet. Everything else is spelled exactly the same. It's all that little bit of time. That's all that's going to make the whole difference in the entire world. So my blessing is to everybody that we should live in the life of now, and not going to say I'm going to be better later. It says you don't be better later, you be better right now.
But still, you still didn't say who told them to make matzah. Who told? Was their decision to make this kind of bread because they were rushing out,